Should have printed it out.
Sometimes it moves over when there's a big drawing, so you have to kind of scroll your internet over.
Huh.
But if you call the meeting to order, I can do the attendance.
Okay. All right. I believe we can call the Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation Committee to order, and Ms. Robertson can go forward with the attendance.
Oops. And John, in the meantime, I will just email you the agenda quickly. Thank
you. That would be a help.
Okay, so I see on the line Dart Strayer.
Present.
Clark Henry. Yep. He's here.
I'm here.
Kevin Walsh.
Here.
Dan Faminsky.
I'm here.
Ismet Alam. He's here. Denise Murphy McGraw.
Here.
Chairman Delarada. Here. Alexis
Present.
Kim.
Yeah.
And
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Matt Yetto.
I'm here.
And Yasmin Syed.
I'm here.
Is there anybody I missed?
I'm here too.
Oh, hi, Dennis. Oh, you're on live stream. Okay, you're live stream. All right, I gotcha. Okay, that's everybody.
And do we have any public comments this morning?
We
I
do
did
not.
not receive any.
Yeah, I didn't receive any email either wishing to participate. Just letting the record show that Paul Briggs and Jean Fody just joined.
Okay, very well. And we did get the minutes to July 10th and August 7th. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Are there any recommended changes?
Well, I'll move the July 10th. There's one change to the August meeting, so I'll move the July 10th for adoption.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, this is Kevin. I'll move the July 10th meeting minutes for adoption? Or is it, what date is that?
Thank you. I'll second that.
Yeah, July 10th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That will carry unanimously, and that brings us to.
Well, actually,
yes,
I wasn't at the 10th meeting, so I'm gonna not vote. I'm gonna abstain.
Thank you. How about the August 7th, 2020? Do we have a motion to adopt those?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I will second.
I have one change to those minutes.
What would that be?
That would be page 4, paragraph, let's see. I'm trying to pull it up here. Page 4, under historical for Mr. Brennan, first paragraph, last sentence. Mr. Brennan stated a possible fall date to unveil the plague. I don't think he's going to unveil a plague. We've had enough problems in 2020. So I think he's going to unveil the plaque.
Very good. Nice catch, Kevin. Okay, any other changes? Seeing none, are there any votes in opposition to moving those minutes forward? Seeing that, they will carry unanimously, and I believe that brings us to Laura, the community choice aggregation.
Yes, so there's currently kind of a divide that's going on with the community choice aggregation, and I know that we received emails from some of our residents that pay very close attention to this, and they were a little concerned about moving forward because the price for renewables is a little high right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and they didn't really understand. I mean, they didn't necessarily mind the market that Mega was trying to do, but they thought it was too complicated to explain to the public, and they weren't sure about the bandwidth that the public has right now for the outreach. But Mega did call, and they wanted us to know that the prices have actually gone quite down. They've abandoned that model that our residents thought was too complicated. And the way that they got the prices to go down was to essentially not start anything until March. So they would lock in the low prices now, but things wouldn't unroll or happen really until March. And they felt like that was a good timeline for the public outreach, because that would mean that the opt-out letter would go out in January, which is probably a pretty good time for people to sit down and think about it. And it is a less stressful time for planning and building and maybe some other departments that would be helping. So they felt like that timeline was working with the pandemic and with the community's kind of ability to handle what's going on. And I can show you the prices, but right now, Troy, New Scotland, and a couple other of the smaller municipalities are looking at the rates and considering moving forward. But Albany, Bethlehem, and Saratoga Springs have right now put their CCA program on hold. And the way she explained it to me is that they're all actually still in the CCA. It's just that they're not actually opting into the prices right now. And, so there's not too much of a problem for us to go in or out. They just kind of need us to make that call.
Laura, when you say in or out, just for context and for clarification, you mean we're going to continue to remain in the aggregation as initially planned right before COVID?
To review the prices, and actually, you're still not even
bound.
Obligated to take the prices once you review them. But the reason that they want to know if you even want to look at the prices and if there's a consideration that you're going to move forward, is because the numbers are different based on how many people they're asking for the prices. So they're kind of asking, and you're still not locked into anything, but they want to know if you want to look at the prices or not.
So will the prices be updated to reflect the actual number of participants in the aggregation?
Yeah, and she said that's kind of why they're asking for us. I mean, and they obviously, like I said, you would not be locked in, but do we even want to look at the numbers? They have, I can show you, this is the numbers that they came back with when they kind of gave.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would be helpful just to see the numbers, because I mean, we were already in gung-ho about moving forward right up until March 2020. So I mean, basically seeing what the numbers are compared to where they were pre-COVID, I think would be a helpful metric if they have that.
Yeah, so this is, okay, I can ask them for that. But here's the historical prices, and here's this is the 100% renewable, which is the most expensive. There would be less expensive options within this, but obviously a lot of the communities in the CCA right now are really looking at 100% renewable. So that was the number that they were zeroing in on. And it's lower than 2015 through 2018, but it is higher than 2019. So that may be one of the reasons that people were a little bit nervous. But if we wanted to look at the final numbers, we would look at them in late September and have 48 hours to decide. And again, the prices and the opt-out stuff wouldn't actually start until 2021.
And the decision to be made is just, I mean, it's all coming back to me now, is whether or not the opt-in, like the automatic opt-in amount is going to be the 100% renewable, the mixed, or what's the third option?
Well, they'll actually come back with a range of options, but the 100% renewable is the one that everybody's most interested in. The one thing that she was explaining to me, and you guys know that when we start talking about, ESCOs and rec credits and stuff, I start to be like, but she did say that the Climate Smart Communities program is coming out with another round of incentives, and that is going to include this 100% renewable CCA type of thing that we're going into. And she said that right now on the energy market, there's only a certain number of RECs, and RECs are renewable energy credits. And their concern is that because they're scarce, and New York State is actually coming out with, you know, grants and things that reward you for getting them, rather than going down, the cost of the renewable energy may go up. And so, yes, it is uncertain, but they are a little worried that the 100% renewable option, just because of the way that you're required to get certifications on these rec credits and stuff, may it may be a scarce market for a while until New York changes or creates more renewable energy credits, in which case, if we really want to go with the 100% renewal, this may be a very, very good price over the next couple years. That's my understanding of it.
So does this require a new resolution? And I mean, I think we should set up a meeting off this call with Ismat to catch up to speed, in so much as the former comptroller was one of the CCA liaisons designated by Mega, our CCA administrator. So we want to make sure that we update our point of contact with her email and phone number, right, Laura? Because it was you and Paul Sylvester.
Well, and I mean, maybe anybody else can jump in here. Like, we could have Mega could be on the line. We could get Jeff Corbin on the line, because he knows way more about everything than I do. And then, you know, like Denise or anybody from the town board who wants to listen. And then at that point we can say, yeah, do we want to see the numbers, or do we want to stay, I would say, a little bit conservative, like, you know, Albany, I don't think Schenectady's landed unless anybody else knows, but Albany, Bethlehem, and Saratoga Springs have definitely said that they're going to wait.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on with our resolutions?
Sure. Do you guys want me to try and set up a separate meeting, or do you have a sense that I only want to do that if you guys do want to at least kind of think about looking at the numbers and understand this kind of new thing, and maybe have Jeff look at it one more time?
It is a good idea to see how they compare to pre-COVID, so we can make that analysis.
Okay.
So yeah, why don't we do that, Laura?
Okay, I can do that.
All right.
So the first resolution is the resolution adopting the chicken code. I put in the agenda packet a couple of emails that were bouncing around about some of the questions that we want resolved before we do the final adoption vote. Not saying that it's approved, but and that was that we had originally had the $75 flat building permit fee, and that was just changed to the regular building permit fee. And really the reason for that is that if it's less than $1,000, it's $50 for the permit. And if they're building something really complicated that requires more review, you know, it can get up to $100, $200 for the permit. But it's really based on how involved the review is, and, you know, how big that structure is, and what, you know, what it costs for the person to build it. So, I mean, we certainly do have building permits with flat building permit fees like roofs, but we typically lose a lot of money on roof permit fees, because, you know, we'll even just now on residential roofs, we've been having some pretty big homes redo their roof for, you know, almost $100,000, and the permit fee is like $200. so that would more typically be like, you know, a $400, $500 permit fee. This was just to have, you know, harmony with what we do on a regular basis, and to make room for complicated permits if we get them.
Okay, so the minimum would be $50, right?
Yeah, that's the minimum for any residential permit, is $50. Yep.
All right, very well. And how about the number of hens?
Then yes, so that was in Alexis's email. She can speak to that if she wants. She's got Cohoes, Ballston Spa, City of Albany, Colony, City of Rensselaer.
I don't know if I can really speak to it.
Okay, but I would like.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Councilwoman McGraw.
Yeah, I know. I would just like, you know, there's been a lot of back and forth on this with residents, with others, with people on staff. I think we're just trying to figure out the best way to proceed, John. So Alexis, you have done a lot of research around this. Maybe you can kind of walk us through. I thought we were going to have a higher permit, but I think we have landed on the $50 because it's just easier for Laura. I'm not sure that really encompasses all of the expenses that will be related to this, but I guess we can find out. I just don't want to get into this position where we find out it's a lot more expensive and time consuming, and then we have to be raising a fee. 'Cause we didn't-
Yeah, I mean, the fee, I mean, I just think of how much the opportunity cost and all the discussions we've had going into this. So I want it to be a well thought out code when we adopt it. So, I mean, with regards to the number of chickens, I mean, if we're not going to have a safeguard, I mean, I know we originally said 6, but we didn't have a safeguard in terms of the minimum size of the R1 or R2 lot. So, I mean, I think I know Councilman Delarada had said maybe 5. I figure maybe we start with less rather than more, since it does require annual permit resubmission for approval. It would probably be more difficult for us to go from 6 hens to 4 than it would be for us first year to do 4 and then the second year do 6.
And my other concern is around the fact that people who live, let's say Niska Isle, they think that somehow we're taking away a right from them.
Yeah, no, they're different because they're actually a farm. And so
Right.
in our zoning code, they, you know, that if you're a designated farm, you're allowed to raise poultry and do truck gardening and stuff like that. So they fall under a completely different section of the code.
Okay, so I think that there's some confusion, and obviously people over there are very interested in this. We've heard a lot from Libby. And I think that Libby has asked a few of us some questions and she's gotten different answers. So I just want to make sure that those folks over there understand that we're not impeding on whatever rights they have now. And this isn't, you know, to try to bring them to a different, more of a residential code, right?
Yeah, although like Alexis, maybe you and I can look at it. It probably wouldn't hurt to put a line in the chicken code that says, you know, excluding or you know, areas that have already been designated a farm or a pre-existing non-conforming farm.
That would be helpful. I would appreciate it. All right.
Yeah,
so
that's a
then-
good idea.
Yeah.
How about
I have a question. Moving from 6 to 5 chickens, are we proposing that to reduce the impact of the chickens, or?
I mean, it's the potential impact and potential risk of nuisance to the neighbors, since we're not having a square footage requirement, meaning that you could have, you know, regardless of if your backyard's enormous and your side yard and your front yard and backyard are enormous, versus a small like Old Niskuna closer together, you can have the same number of hens. So I think the thinking was that we could maybe start off with 4. I mean, Laura, what do you think? Is 4 too few? I mean, I'm not sure. I've never had a chicken or
Yeah, I'm
desire to
seeing
have one.
6 here. That's why my question is.
Yeah,
is
so I
there a
think we were
reason why
saying, we were
there's 6?
talking down from 6, and so we said maybe 5. I mean, I don't know, Laura, what are your thoughts? I have no thoughts on this other than that I don't want to decide.
What's the reasoning to talk down from 6? Like why?
Well, just because, I mean, we would be the only, when I say only, so as of the last date of my email, I haven't checked in the interim, we would be the only place in the capital region with a chicken code that doesn't have a limit on either the square footage or the number of hens.
So
I mean, we wouldn't have a square footage limit.
I'm not sure that's true. When you have that square foot requirement, when you see like at least 800 or at least 600 square feet, there's no way that there exists a 600 square foot lot. So
Yeah,
I think
so that's
like
a question for you. Like, do you know what it's?
Albany, like that's the minimum size of the enclosures, I think.
Do you think it's more the set, like the being a certain number of feet away from your neighbor's property line is more tailored to what the potential concern with a nuisance?
Possibly, yeah, but I don't agree, because if those square foot requirements, there's no way that they're gonna range from 600 to 22,500. There's something different that's being regulated by those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that something is, but I mean, if you would know much more than I would in terms of the appropriate distance between whatever, either the hens itself or the hen enclosure in the neighbor's property lines.
Right, and so we talked about that a little bit, like, right, if we treat them as accessory structures and they're small, they can be as close as 5 feet to the neighboring property. But we did put a provision in the code that they have to be in the backyard. They can't even be in the side yard. And so that's typically going to mean that they're
There before?
Because most people's homes are in a line. That's the way that things developed in Niskuna, that they're typically not going to be that close to homes. But if we wanted to, we could put that provision back in here that said that they couldn't be closer to a structure, an adjacent single family residence. They couldn't be, you know, like within 25 feet of a single family residence or something like that. There was something in there. And then it said without, you know, without written approval of the neighbor. And then it's like, do we really want to open up neighbors going over to neighbors?
We should just put in there the normal thing.
You could actually just put in, you can't be 25 feet to your neighbor's residence and end it there.
Unless you want to, and you can always just go to zoning board of appeals like you normally would for
Yeah.
that. You don't have to bring in the neighbors. Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't you send that to me?
Yeah. What were you saying, Denise?
The 25 feet.
Do you guys like that? You want to put that back in there and just leave the letter part out?
I mean, that incident that is.
Yeah, I
incident
think
is only
that's a
gonna
really
come
good-
up a handful of times, right? In the town, that's not going to be in most cases. It's going to be more than 25 feet, just the way everybody's backyards are set up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, I think we're all overestimating the impact that these hens are going to have on neighbors and community. So I'm good with it either way. I think this is just a bunch of minutia, and once people have these hens, they're going to love them, and we're all going to be happy again. So however you guys want to do it, if you want to have 4 hens, 5 hens, 6 hens, if you want to go 25 feet, 50, I really don't think it matters that much. So whatever you guys think is appropriate, I'm for.
Okay. So my recommendation.
Yeah,
The nuisance.
I think if you're worried about the nuisance, I think really the distance from the dwelling is probably more effective than reducing the hens. Because I was struggling. The 6 hens make more noise than 5 hens. I mean, a little bit, but the nuisance would.
And
still
where
be
the
there.
5 came from, sorry to cut you off. So where the 5 came up from is from the survey that Councilwoman McGraw and Councilman Delarada sent out. They got over, I think, 800 to 1,000 responses, and the median was that people said 5 is the maximum number of hens. So that's where the 5 came from. The idea, it wasn't pulled out of thin air.
I figured there was a reason.
Yes, and Laura, what would be the effective date, assuming the town board was to enact this on September 22nd? Would it take effect immediately? Does your department need some, time to get prepared mentally for this?
Yeah. I don't know. It's really never a non-busy time here. Like, we think that sometimes, if anything, like January or February is a little bit better. That's typically when they load up on their on
Do you
their
want it to
training.
effective January 1st?
It's really you guys' call. If
prefer that. I would prefer January 1st, because if there are other issues that we're not catching through this, I've explained to people who really want it that, this is an issue that is out there, but it's out there at a time that's just, we're in a million different directions as a town. So I'm not entirely sure everybody's really focused on this. People who want it are certainly focused on it, but I'm not sure everybody else is really focused on it. So I would like January 1.
So that would go into the resolution for adopting, right? It would say effective January 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we can put it in the home rule when that Michelle, the town clerk, sends to the state.
Why
But we
are
wanted
doing January 1? Because the hens are quieter in the wintertime? Is that why?
We just want to make sure, I think, echoing Councilwoman McGraw's sentiment, that people who maybe perhaps are focused on COVID-related, issues rather than following the latest Niskuna code amendment, perhaps they have a chance to read it and get caught up to speed and share their thoughts.
We've got a lot of responses to that survey, Denise, and we've been talking about this for a long time. I mean, if somebody's not attuned to the chicken issue now, I don't know if they're going to be in January or
Maybe,
September
John,
or
but
October.
we got a lot of people who knew about the chickens and wanted chickens that responded to the survey. I think if you walked up to a normal person in Old Niskuna, I think this is an Old Niskuna issue.
It's the same with any code regulation. They're either following it or they're not. I mean,
Right.
This has been going on for a long time. There's a fall time. We're going to miss our chickens in the fall, running around in the autumn leagues.
Okay, so we're going to say it's effective immediately, and people are going to think they can have chickens. And are they going to have their hen house ready? Are they going to have their hen house inspected? All of those
other
other
pieces.
It's
going to take time to do all that. So it's going to take a month. People got to I bet you we're going to have architects involved. It's going to be in front of the architect review board, some of these chicken coops. But yeah, it's gonna take time. So let's, give the people time to set up. Why wait to January? I mean, again, we're talking about chickens here, not wolves. You know what I mean? How much of an impact
I
can
do
they
know what
have?
you mean, and I remain that I don't, I'm not the world's biggest fan of this. So, and I think there's a lot more people like me out there, but I am trying to make this as feasible as possible.
Well,
So,
listen,
but
I
if you want to
understand
put
that,
the month
Denise.
on, it's your resolution. I can't.
Well, yeah, look at it. Either works or it doesn't work. I mean, let's put it out there and vote on it. And we've been talking about it. I don't want to wait till January 1. If it passes, let the people get chickens. They got to wait another 5 months to get chickens.
I think the issue that Councilwoman McGraw is speaking to is that do we have the enforcement arm of this code?
Well, again, I don't think there's much to enforce here. We're talking about chickens.
But there might be.
Making a big
John,
deal
I
about
could not agree. I could not disagree with you more. Of all the years we've worked together, I've never disagreed with you on an issue more than what you just said, that there's not a lot to enforce here. Because
All right.
I will say, God help my neighbor who gets chickens, who we don't have fences in our neighborhood. And the chickens end up in my backyard and are going to the bathroom all over my backyard.
And your dog's in your backyard.
And with my dog.
Denise,
Right.
when you see those chickens hopping around your backyard, you're going to have a big smile on your face.
Well, you can't have
the
chickens
start
without
of-
keeping them fenced in.
And
That doesn't mean that they won't necessarily bother adjacent dogs, because when people have had chickens, essentially legally in Niskayuna, I think part of the reason that they get called into the town is that the dogs can hear them walking around on the other side of the fence. But they have to have fenced in chickens.
Well,
John wants his resolution for the end of the month.
can we split the difference, Denise? How about we get it going in like
Columbus Day weekend. Yeah, or like October. We just say October 1st. That gives them a week. I mean, that's not that much time, but enough time. A week, I guess.
Worth $1 million.
Oh my God, this is so fucked up.
I don't sign away. 2 hours.
Hi, guys.
Somebody's not on mute and should be.
Okay.
Maybe so. What Linda and I and maybe we can get this done before the end of September. But Linda and I talked about that when you do a building permit, like for an accessory structure, there's an accessory structure supplement that we have prepared and generated that you have to fill out. For decks, there's a deck supplement where you have to write in the number of beams that you have between the boards and how thick they are and whatever. We would very likely have to do a hen supplement so that people are filling in all the details that we need to make sure that they're following the code. And I do think that won't take forever, but it normally, typically when we're developing those supplements, come to me, then we get comments from the building inspectors and they go back. They've been commenting on the code, and the building inspectors are, I think, okay with the code. But I do think that developing the implementation of the permits, I understand that, where John's coming from January 1st. But I do think that we probably need a little bit of time to, develop that. So maybe instead of October 1st, we could do November 1st. That would just give us that cushion so that we could have all of the permits and processes ready.
November 1st sounds great.
Hey, Laura, plus don't you guys say that it takes 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks to review a permit, an application?
It
Anyway,
does.
so-
Yeah, I mean, it is a lengthy process. The thing that I was just thinking when you guys said, is it ready to go, would be if somebody could literally come in and take out a permit on October 1st, the only thing we have ready for them right now is the building and zoning permit. That's all we have right now. And we would probably want a supplement, because you fill out supplements for a lot of different things in the town, and we would probably want a supplement with the building permit that would be filled out. And we would have to develop that. I can show you what they look like if you're interested. It's just they have more rules than a regular building permit, which is the same as decks and accessory structures and all that stuff. So there's a supplement that lists all, like for fences, that lists that they can't be 6 feet in the front yard, and it shows like where your side yards are designated. So it's just a thing that attaches to the permit that shows the person who's taking it out all the additional regulations that go with the permit. And we would definitely, I think, to benefit everyone, want a supplement with a hen enclosure permit.
So are we at November 1st? Denise, you okay with November 1st?
Yes, of course, John.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so I heard that we should, and we'll resend this all to you guys, definitely just so that there's clarification, put something that says this shall not apply to existing farms or, pre-existing farms. We can figure out the language. We'll add back in the 25 feet to a structure and not have that part about with a letter from the neighbor, because I agree with Alexis, just send them to the zoning board. The only other thing that I think we do need to decide is, I don't know that the fee structures make any difference to me, except that if we actually put a $75 fee into the code, if we ever want to change it, if we have like massive inflation after the pandemic or something.
I'm sorry, I forgot about that, Laura. You explained that last month.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
if we wanted to do a renewal fee, which we probably do, which I had put in my thing, then if a flat fee makes more sense to you guys, I think in conjunction with adoption of the chicken code, there would be a resolution setting fees for the permit and for the annual renewal fee. And that way, if something changed, we would just change the fees by resolution.
Huh.
I agree with that, Laura. You talked about that once before.
Okay, so and we'll just take a look at that. I'll talk with Linda and see what makes the most sense for her. We do have the thing about you guys, you guys know, I do understand where you're coming from for the renewal now, and I am on board. And we do have some renewals that cost money, like the multifamily renewals, and then we do have some that are completely free, and it's pretty hard for us to track down the completely free ones. So I do think that some kind of a fee for the annual renewal helps make it valuable, like of value to us and to the people who are doing it, and it's a little bit easier to enforce when there's a fee attached. So my recommendation would be that we do an annual renewal fee if we're doing an annual renewal, in which case we would be doing a resolution setting the fee anyway. So then then either we govern the hens by our regular building permit structure fee, or we do a flat fee, and we can do it at the same time as the annual renewal fee.
So it's not going to be a $50 minimum anymore?
Well, it could. So I just think that putting the flat fee in the code is typically a bad idea. Putting any fee in a code is typically a bad idea. We could say fee set by resolution, or we could just say needs a permit from the building department, in which case the building department fee structure is what applies, which is it's $50 at minimum. Okay. And then if you're building the Taj Mahal hen enclosure, it can even be $100 or $200 depending on how much money you're spending.
So are you proposing to change that or no? I guess I'm confused.
It's your call. If you think that the annual renewal should have a fee, I think that needs to be set by resolution. And so then it's up to you guys whether or not you want a flat fee for the hens, or you want to do it the way the building department does it.
So we could do both then. You could do the $50 minimum with the building permit and an annual renewal?
Yeah, yep.
And how much do you think the annual renewal should be?
Our annual renewals are typically $25 for multifamily.
All right.
So, and as you recall, John, we discussed the renewal because that would be our one way
to enforce
any issues and problems, right? So
yes.
Enforcement.
Yep, that's a good idea. Absolutely. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so then we would add in, so following the resolution, asking for adoption of the chicken code, we would have a resolution that would set fees. And so theoretically, I'm not saying this would happen. If the chicken code died, then you guys could just table the next resolution setting the fees. I'm not saying it will happen. It seems like there's, reasonable support. It's funny, like Kevin can speak to it. It's a polarizing item.
The fees?
No, chickens.
Chickens.
Chicken,
How many
chicken is a
do
polarizing
polarize?
item. So my one other question about this is, can we go back to when we have complaints?
Yes.
So your office is going to handle that. How will it be handled different than dog barking or other complaints that we have?
So we would handle it if it was, like at daytime, they moved the enclosure too close to my lot line. They're not getting rid of the poop. They're not keeping their fence closed. Those kind of items, like the building inspectors can do as a enforcement inspection during the day based on complaints. If the complaint is that the chickens are being abused, the building inspectors really, they can take a look at they can take a look at what the coop looks like. But once it's an animal abuse complaint, it would get forwarded over to the police. And if it's like too much noise at night or there's a rooster, the police, right now the police enforce the rooster thing. But the building inspectors, I don't think would be called out from home, based on chicken noise. I think probably, and what happens is the police go out and they do a police report of what they observe and if there's noise, and then they forward it on to the building inspector, and the building inspector follows up with the property owner.
And that's noise. But who will we call if like the chickens get out of the hen and then hen house or stuff like that?
Yeah, the building inspectors probably aren't as going, they don't typically, like if a dog gets loose or, somebody gets loose, they're not the ones that go around the neighborhood hoping the owners get them back. They're really like, are you meeting the code? Is the fence enclosed? I don't know. Maybe like, is it civil if the chicken gets out and then starts harassing the neighbor? I'm not really sure.
Hopefully it doesn't involve the town, and it would just be more between the two of them, yes. But to the extent that we issued a permit and we're saying that you're allowed to do it, it would be an allowable use. I don't want to go too deep into these hypotheticals because even though more likely than not, they'll come across my desk at some point. I think the bigger picture question you asked is whether or not we have to, in terms of enforcement, have who's going to, 9 to 5. Are we going to have Ken and Tom do it? I think that's kind of the big picture question. Or are we just going to say, sorry, don't call 911 because that's not appropriate. There's no one really to call.
Ken and Tom can do it. But like if a chicken escapes, I guess the only, the Tom and Ken would, if there's a hole in the fence and that's the reason the chicken escapes, Tom and Ken can go out and say, you have to mend your fence. You have, 2 days to mend your fence. And by the way, go get your chicken. But which is, I guess, the same thing that happens when a dog escapes, right? If a dog escapes.
Yeah, we have a dog warden. So we have the dog warden who's like tasked with like getting a dog that's on the run. We just don't have a chicken person who would be responsible for that. Like we don't want Tom and Ken. I think that we're already spending maybe too much time on this, and we can flush this out off the committee call so we can move on. But we just don't want someone chasing after a chicken.
Yeah, Tom and Ken can't chase after chickens.
As I had already said, I thought that this warranted a separate meeting.
Okay.
So we've already had, you listening to me make breakfast for Piper and Beck, somebody else come. And so, yeah, let's, but we got to get the meeting scheduled. So that what we do in committee meetings is say, oh, we'll have a meeting about this. And then they never get scheduled.
So I end up having to chase my daughter's chickens. So call me.
Oh, yeah, that'll be my dream. I want to watch. We have a video of that.
The town attorney has other duties as assigned.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so there's a couple of things we still got to add in there. My department still needs to do a couple of things. We'll do another email blast and then maybe a separate meeting if we still have some of these outstanding items.
Fair enough.
The next resolution, I attached the public hearing. Michelle prepared it. Thank you, Michelle. I saw that you hopped on the line. Oh, is Paul Webster on the line? I see that we were joined by a phone person. And also someone else joined for the record. I think Paul Webster is here now. And Michelle Martinelli joined. So we have the public hearing, and it was my recommendation that if you don't get a lot of public comment, you can always table it. But my recommendation would be just to have the resolution ready to go to adopt the zoning code amendments. The planning board had a public hearing. I didn't hear a lot about it. We have had a couple comments from Gail King concerned about the setbacks that are being proposed for the CN neighborhood mixed-use building. And I have written to her on this on a number of occasions. It doesn't affect grandfathered in buildings. So, the buildings over in the Niskuna co-op and stuff that are too close to the lot lines, they're pre-existing non-conforming now. They will continue to be allowed to be pre-existing non-conforming. But if we don't put neighborhood mixed-use setbacks in the code, if somebody came in on a vacant parcel or wanted to tear one of those buildings down, there isn't any way that we would be able to say that you couldn't build it on the lot line or something that may be very damaging to the buildings that surround it. I think it was an oversight that it wasn't in the code. It's not meant to be detrimental at all to the existing properties, but it is meant to, help and guide any new development or redevelopment that comes for neighborhood mixed-use buildings in a CN zone. I know we've looked at them before. Aside from that one public comment that we've heard, did anybody have anything else that they wanted to talk about prior to that resolution being proposed to the board? Okay, so that one's easy. I know it was kind of late last night. I have the authorization to Barton and LaJudas for bidding assistance and construction docks. That is for the River Road grant, and he was able to get a quote to me, I think at like 5:30 last night. And so I popped it into the second agenda packet that I sent out to you. They have, engineered essentially the full gamut of improvements to River Road Park upgrades. If a grant comes out, we have engineering details and phases for the remainder of all the fields and what we need to do. So we're in really good shovel ready type of way to do our phases. We have phase 1 all outlined. The River Road, the softball club is okay with the bid documents. But it does need a SWIP, and it's up to us, but they are more than happy to take over all of the bid phasing and questions, which is very helpful to me. And they can do the construction inspection. So they're saying that, the town does have the capability to do the bid phase and the construction inspection, probably. I'm not sure that we have I don't know if we can do a SWIP actually, but Matt might know that, but I don't know if we have the bandwidth. And I talked to Josh for a long time because, this is over and above what we have for the grant. So it's another, $25,000. But I can't say whether or not we want to use our own people or whether or not it makes more sense right now to pay Barton and LaJudas. They've been doing a great job. It's, with all the engineering that they've done, I think I was feeling like it was expensive, but Josh was comparing it to other places and he was like, it's really not that bad. It's actually quite good. And so if we want to let, our staff continue working on the stuff that they're working on and have Barton and LaJudas make sure that this goes smoothly, it's about $25,000. If we want to try and parcel this out and have our staff take over some of it, we can. I leave that up to you guys.
Okay. What's next?
Next, going back and forth, is do you want to give me direction on that though?
I'm sorry, say again, Laura?
If it's up to me, I would bring the Barton and LaJudas forward to do it because Matt and Ray and I are all pretty maxed out.
Yeah, I agree with that. We make a commitment to try to get them moving.
Okay, awesome. So we'll put that on finance and we can talk about it there. The next one is the resolution authorizing the pesticide-free pledge that Ellen and the CAC have been working on this pretty hard, and you've got the pledge in there, the pesticide-free pledge, which we could put on our website and, kind of email blast out. This is to help protect the environment, my health, and the health of others. I pledge to stop using synthetic pesticides in my yard and garden. They can fill this out. And if they want to take that pledge, then the sign below that, we would order these. They're pretty small, actually. They're smaller than like a political sign. And there's just a couple more things that she wants to do with that. Like we said, let's make the pesticide-free text bigger so that it's quite obvious when you're coming towards it, and then put a website on it for anybody who wants to go and get a pesticide-free sign, because that may be the way that a lot of people end up seeing them. But we've talked about this a lot, and so what I think that it would entail is a resolution from the town board saying that, you know, we're enacting this pesticide-free pledge for the residents, and if they want to take it, you know, we'll provide them with the pesticide-free sign. The only thing I'm waiting on is a quote for how much the signs will cost.
Okay, so since this was my thing, can I see all the stuff they've worked on? So because all the stuff for CAC, like I get, I guess maybe planning and zoning agendas, but I have not seen the CAC agendas. And because this is actually, CAC goes to John's committee, but this actually came from me and my committees. That would be great if I could see more of it.
I mean, yes, we have. Yeah,
because it would be my resolution.
So our last agenda has a lot more in it, but all we were proposing to attach to the resolution of the town board would be the pesticide-free pledge that's in this packet and the sign.
Okay, all right. So if there's no more to that than what's in the packet now.
We do have more material that we would love to share with people.
There's no about it.
But
That
yeah.
resolution that I'm going to sponsor. So I would have. That's all.
We spent a lot of time discussing this. We've gone through multiple iterations on signs and pledges and stuff. So, you know, the committee has done a lot on this.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure they have. I proposed it more than a year ago. So it's been going on. I know the timeline of it. I proposed it, and now that I'm seeing it ready for a resolution. That's all. I just have that is, I am not questioning it or pushing back. I just went from proposing an idea to now there's a resolution, and I've had no other conversation with anyone. So,
well, I'll send you the backup stuff too, because it is really good. And if we can, I'd like to attach it somehow.
Okay.
But we figured, and like Dart said, we have gone back and forth that the simpler, the better for the pledge.
I agree. I absolutely agree on that. I think if it gets too complicated, I mean, we have people even all over the map on other things that we've tried to talk about with pesticides in the past. So
yeah, and we tried to pick a sign that would be sort of like a branding. So once you knew what the sign said, you could go through a neighborhood and you could see the sign and say, "Oh, they're pesticide free."
Yeah.
So I think it will help with you know, publicizing this with, you know, the residents of Niskayuna.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be my plan, would be to put out, if we were going to pass this resolution this month, then I would certainly put out a press release and put out something put out an email to the town once you're ready. So we need to know when we're going to have the signs, right? So.
Yeah.
And what they cost. I don't think it'll be too much. I think I can probably take it out of my miscellaneous planning budget, but I have to know what the cost is, and then I can pass that on to you guys, and then we can decide.
Okay. And you'll know that by finance? You'll know that by end of the month? What?
So Ellen is the one that's getting all the quotes, and I'm going to be Maine. So probably by the end of the month. If we need to push this one to the next month, that's not a big deal. I think the timing, like we said, like we want to get the program in place, but we would probably not really push the pledge until, you know, March, when people start paying attention to their lawns again. So there isn't a rush on this one.
Okay. That sounds more than fine.
Okay. I'm going to try and go faster because
we are, well, and not on the line. So I think we do have somebody that you don't know who they are. Is that it, Laura?
Yeah, I was thinking it was Paul. Yeah, the number
not Paul Webster. So if we could have whoever is called in.
Oh. Whose number ends in 00? If you called in on the 00 number, you may be muted and you have to press *6. We just try and keep track of who attends the meetings.
This is Ismat. So I was switching between different phones. So my phone and then the laptop. So I don't know what am I right now.
Oh, okay.
You can see me. I don't know.
That may be the town phone number then, because that would end in 00. Okay.
I think so, because I was having problems with my camera and with the whole thing since yesterday, so Bill fixed it.
Oh,
Great.
okay. Okay, good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. And then the next so the Notch Street proposal is just a proposal. Well, we've talked about it before. I put it on there to get my butt in gear. I would like to have proposals by the end of the month if I can. And the last resolution that I had is that we had somebody we lost Steve Signell on the tree council, and we had an interested person who wanted to join the tree council. His name is Jonathan Marr. His resume is attached. He's a professor at Union and loves trees, and so I don't know if you guys just want to take a look and let me know. I have him would be tentatively appointed in September there. Oops. Sorry, I have too many windows open. So the Celts Farm, the planning board has been working, pretty hard on the revised proposal with no road connection. And I think that this kind of bended cul-de-sac is likely very close to where we're going to land. The big thing that we've been working on is the emergency access. The plan that's in the packet shows the emergency access going out to River Road at the end of the cul-de-sac, and the county essentially said no to that. They had a couple points which are probably good. They think that it would be easily a herd path with people kind of not illegally, but unsafely crossing River Road in that area to get over to Clifton Park, to Blatnick Park. And it's just very, very poor sight lines, even, for the rare occurrence of an emergency vehicle going there. So that as proposed can't exist. The planning board is looking at using the bike path as an emergency access or moving the emergency access somewhere. Kevin, feel free to jump in just so you guys, see, like, this is essentially going to be the configuration. There's a couple other things we're working on, like lot 14, and we're getting to the point where we want to start engineering the stormwater management and stuff. And really just emergency access is the final item that we've got to hone in on and decide where it goes. The couple people from Windsor Drive are still very interested and asked to have a roundtable. It's something that I'm always happy to do roundtables. I'm trying to set it up. This is apparently, according to Dale, half or even more than half Fire District 2, and then only a little bit Fire District 1. So maybe we'll have both fire chiefs taking a look at it and figuring out what they want to do there.
Laura, what I've gotten emails as well as asking me to sit in on this roundtable. I kind of was of the view that I would just defer to you and the fire chief to make a recommendation to the planning board, and I could advise the planning board then. Are you saying that? Yeah, rather than hear it, just a small group. So what is the action that's going to be taken at the next planning board meeting?
He may not even be on the next planning board meeting. I mean, we gave him some items to work on for updating his plan, but I haven't seen a new one yet. And I think he's maybe probably waiting on direction on where the emergency access is going to go. So these are just kind of the final items that he needs before he does engineering. The planning board, I think, gave him pretty good direction on how they want to see the layout. So I don't even know if he'll be on the next planning board meeting.
Oh, well, if he's going to be able to touch base beforehand, because like I said, the question that keeps coming up is whether or not making the multi-use path accessible by emergency vehicles, by widening it or increasing it so that it can handle the weight. Would that be akin to a vehicular connection, which would be outside the scope of the special use permit? So we just have to make sure we hammer down on that.
Yeah,
It's
brought
Why-
that up at the planning board
Why
meeting.
do you
Yeah.
have to have emergency access there?
Yeah.
There's nothing different about the
Yeah.
way fire trucks and ambulances have been getting in there before.
Yeah, I agree, Laura. Are you able to answer that either now or planning board? Like, why couldn't they do the option of, like, worst case scenario, driving over someone's lawn? I know that came up during the planning board meeting, but like I said, this can just be food for thought, but that's the question I had too.
Kevin, I saw you unmuted. Do you want to speak
Yeah,
to
I mean,
that?
I
Or
was
do
just
you
gonna-
want me to?
Yeah, I mean, we heard from Fire District Chief Juan, right? He was concerned with the bike path as a potential, but he doesn't have full jurisdiction. We'll have to hear from District Number 2. Laura responded with some thoughts that maybe we can, like as Alexis said, increase the strength of the sub base and make it a little bit wider. And it would still be a bike path, but would give that opportunity in case there was a fire and River Road was shut down, for instance. And John, to your question, I mean, we've been doing this on every subdivision as we've been recently. I mean, there's always old subdivisions out there that we did not have emergency access to. But on a go-forward basis, for many years, we've been doing this, and we don't want to treat this site any differently than we have other applicants, such as Amador over on Harmon Grove, or is it Middle Street, or Laurie Drive. All those areas have emergency access, and we want to continue.
But Kev, isn't that emergency access to the new development? I mean, this would be emergency access to where there already is a development and they already have emergency vehicles going in and out of there like they have the past 20 years, right? Or however long.
Well,
because the cul-de-sac is longer than 500 feet. So there's a fair number of houses at the end that if something happened at the front, we always find an alternative emergency access.
yeah, we'll talk to District 2 Chief and see what he has to say. It'd be nice if they can drive down the bike path. I think it solves all the problem. It's only for emergency vehicles. It's not for public access. We can always put a bump gate up on it like we did in Laurie Drive so that nobody can go down it, that we can put it to rest, because we gotta go forward and do something so that Joel can move forward also and keep this going.
I guess to me, I just don't see the need of an emergency access there. I understand it would be nice to have for those, that last block of houses or whatever it is, but they've been there now for how long, and there hasn't been any issues that I'm aware of where vehicles weren't getting where they needed to be in time. Of course, it would make it better. I just don't see the need for it, but
John, this is for the new homes, not the existing homes.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to the existing homes.
No, just for the new homes.
Okay, very good. That makes more sense. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions on that? We're working a little bit on the stub for Windsor Drive as well. I think that we kind of landed that we'll leave it. Although I think some of the residents were like,
we don't have the ability to do anything because Joel doesn't own the end of Briar Ridge, so I think that's where we landed.
Yeah,
right.
But they were, and the planning board was like, maybe it's a good place for parking, and then some of the residents were like, we don't really want parking there, so we might still have to like stripe it or do something with it. But that's that. 4 cases scheduled for zoning board. One of them is the 3410 State Street that we talked about at the last meeting. Craig Serafini's temporary pod is on there. The Aqueduct Park grant has a stone issue for the rowing club. The engineer out there has been working on it with the contractor, and he's going to let me know what they need. I don't know what that's going to mean for the contract until he works it out. But I had talked to, I think, you guys and the contractor and the engineer and potentially Canal Corps, and we're thinking probably a ribbon cutting in October. The critical pedestrian grant is moving forward. The Complete Streets meeting, we talked a lot about this. They are willing to do pedestrian counts. And one of the things we thought that might do a good job at leveraging the demand and support for the connections on St. Joseph and for over Knott Street would be to work a question into the survey for residents, which is attached. So those 2 questions aren't in there. So we would essentially release that survey with 2 additional questions that would say, do you use the St. Joseph, do you ever cross over River Road at St. Joseph's? And then would you support a crosswalk there? If we can get, I'm not sure that we can get 800 responses on a complete street survey, but even if we can get a couple hundred people saying that they would really support a crossing there and use it, I think that would be helpful to the county.
Wait, why are we doing that?
Because the county pushed back a little bit and said that they felt like there may not be a demand for the crosswalk, and they don't like the sight lines. So I, rather than hiring the engineer to do pedestrian counts, which is really expensive, the Complete Streets volunteers are willing to do the pedestrian counts. And then if we, again, work the question into the survey, that should show that there's I would think, high demand for that crosswalk there, which would help us when we're trying to move that one.
Who told us this?
The engineer, Dan Biggs, Weston and Sampson, and myself, we met with Joe Landry and Paul Sheldon on this I think actually a day or two after our last economic development committee meeting, and they're asking for justification on these crosswalks.
So the former supervisor didn't know, wasn't aware of this issue that I've been standing there in the past and had people asking him about. He was unclear that people needed this or wanted this or felt safer by having it.
I don't speak to what he knew or didn't know. He did speak to us about that we needed to have justification for it. And the engineer said it's kind of difficult to do justification for crosswalks because one, we're in a pandemic, and two, there isn't really like an AASHTO guide of how many people crossing a road would trigger the need for a crosswalk. But he did say if we can get pedestrian counts in there high, and we can, you know, and again, like this was just something we came up with Complete Streets, but if we can show that, you know, there's a lot of support for it, maybe that can put the county in a more comfortable place.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, this is only my first week. So all the changes and everything are going to be covered within the grant funding? Are they private funding? Are they from the state or federal? Maybe we can have a separate meeting in regards to all the grants and what the status of those are.
Yeah, I think we should have a grant meeting. That's a great idea. This additional work is all being done by volunteers.
Oh, okay. Wow. Nice. Okay, but we'll set it up. Thank you.
Laura, could you include me in that grant meeting as well?
Sure.
Yeah, I want to as well. Obviously, we've all been sort of involved in this, the supervisor.
That sounds wonderful idea.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. The River Road Park, the final documents are attached. Again, I think that adding that additional money to B&L will be very helpful getting that moved forward. He told me that they think they can release it next week. So they're just finalizing some of the electrical and for their bid docs, and then they'll release those. And I just have to coordinate with Michelle Martinelli on, you know, putting it in the newspaper and stuff like that. And the Upper Union Street, I think we did get the county to finally approve those, and the final docs on that are attached. We could maybe put them out at the same time. I'll let you guys know if we can do that. Complete Streets has been working on comments to the school upgrades. I put the seeker letter in the packet. I can just share quickly with you guys where they're at. I haven't quite finalized the letter. I'm hoping to do that today. But we're not asking for any major substantial changes. We're just, and we've said this before, recognizing that some of the changes to the schools and the additional parking and the additional impervious is going to have some, oops, I did this. Sorry, I did the wrong screen. Can you see the map over there that has the, this highlighted pink connection over here? Can you guys all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I can't see what you see. So, you know, these are like their proposed upgrades, and Matt has been working with me on, you know, some of the drainage because they're adding a lot of impervious surface, but they're also adding a lot of parking spaces and kind of changing the way that drop off is working. So to mitigate some of the traffic that is going to come from, you know, the additional vehicle trips, we're just pushing for like pedestrian connections to the neighborhoods, you know, to hopefully siphon off some of those vehicle trips and promote the walking and the bicycling. So this, they already have the sidewalk from Birchwood out to Birchwood Lane. But there is a stub over here, which you can't see on the aerial, which is a stub of Douglas Court across Laurie Drive. So if they just pave a path over to there, that opens up a fair number of homes that can then safely walk without having to cross any big streets over to Birchwood. This is a terrible place for that. Craig, they're showing, you know, moving a whole playground and adding a bunch of parking here. And we were thinking, and obviously this is just, you know, something they'd have to work out with the town. Like, this is kind of an underutilized parking lot. Rather than add all this impervious, maybe they could set up some kind of a agreement with us to do their staff parking over here. And if that's true, they would probably want to do some kind of I'm sure it's a lot less money though to do a sidewalk here than do a giant parking lot here. And then this is the stuff that we talked about with CDRPC when they did a big study of how to get people between Craig and the JCC. And it was essentially realign the JCC entrance with the Craig school entrance and then put a crosswalk. We've had some conversations with DOT about it. I would say they semi-ignore us, but if the school is working with them on all of this, maybe the school will have a little bit more, the DOT might pay a little bit more attention to them. We've got that in there. Hillside, pretty walkable right now. They have the connection over to the Van Antwerp Road already put in. We just highlighted it because it's important. And then the only thing that we thought is the additional sidewalk down there. Glencliff is outside our jurisdiction, but not walkable. This is where my daughter goes to. But right now the sidewalk stops and there's going to be a lot more drop off. So our recommendation was just continue the sidewalk. And so Iroquois is the really big one. And we've talked about this a whole lot. Like we're trying to get people over into River Road Park and up to Hempstead. So if they're adding a lot of connection between Rosendale and Iroquois, if we can get them to bring that bike path up to River Road, and down to Rosendale, in the future, then you'll have those good connections for bike ped. And Van Antwerp, again, just making those walking connections over to the neighborhoods. They had some of these in there and we just highlighted them because they were important. And the high school, we have these 2 paths that come in from the high school, and they're getting the trails super, super close. So we're just saying, like, take them all the way so that people from these neighborhoods can walk.
A quick question, Laura. Sorry.
Yep.
Why? Just for my understanding. So why are we going to do the seeker, or we are requiring them to do the seeker?
No, they're doing the seeker. We're just an involved agency. So in order, like I said, so in order to, like, what we're saying is that we recognize that there's going to be additional trips generated by the increase in parking, and so to mitigate the increased trips, like we're trying to promote walking and biking so that some of those trips are changed over to
So,
not be vehicle
But
trips.
what about the sidewalks? You said it quickly, and I know that, the Complete Streets Committee has talked to us about it a lot, this whole idea of these sidewalks leading up to all of their, but those would, well, other than Iroquois, that would be the county. Who's going to do the sidewalks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a variety of jurisdictions, and we obviously, like, the school is not likely going to do improvements off-site. So all we can ask the school to do is to make the connections on their property. So, like, for instance, if we were able to, add a paved path through River Road Park all the way over to the school, but it ended in grass, that's not going to be super useful because, it gets tall and wet. And so that's very discouraging to, elementary or middle schoolers who are trying to get to school.
So as the school,
if they can bring the trail to the edge of their properties, that's kind of step one. And then, at some point, the town would probably be responsible for, like, bringing a trail through River Road Park. The county would be responsible, or a grant that the town manages would be responsible for bringing the sidewalk along Rosendale Road. But we're just saying, if they're spending like $30 million or whatever they're doing right now, and they're putting in all these trails, it makes sense for them to bring the trails to the edges of their property so that we can make the connections at some point in the future.
have they expressed an interest in doing that? Because I know the sidewalk issue, especially as it relates to Hillside, has been raised by Bill a few times, but I've never heard anybody from the school actually ask us for any of this.
We've talked to the principal at Craig and to Cosimo a couple of times, and a couple of the school board members have looked at all of these ideas and expressed support for them before. So it's definitely not coming out of left field. They've seen all
Right,
these.
but I'm going to ask this a different way. The school isn't asking us to put these sidewalks in, and Complete Streets is desiring this.
Complete Streets is taking a look at it. And again, there's an impact to us as a municipality, to the use of our roads and to our stormwater systems by the upgrades that the school is doing. So, I mean, if they can, to some extent, create ways that will reduce the vehicle trips, I think under an environmental impact statement, well, it's not environmental, we're letting them review the seeker, but under their environmental assessment, I think that they're obligated to at least look at ways to reduce the vehicle trips to their schools.
So would it be
not asking us to do any of this?
Sorry, what?
But they're not asking us to do this.
Oh, they are. I mean, they are. They have to. It's a seeker coordination letter.
So it's through the seeker coordination letter, but not as part of any of the projects that they have been doing or anything that they have looked at historically.
I guess I'm not understanding that question.
The superintendent has never asked us to put in a sidewalk on Cornelius to get to Hillside.
Oh, no, they never have. Nope.
That's what I'm
Yeah, they
glad.
never have done that. Nope.
Right. Like, so that is completely us trying to take on this project to make it easier and better for the school district. So,
Well, easier and better for all of our residents to reduce vehicle trips so that our roads are less congested and we have less greenhouse gases going out into the world and more, and actually like anything, look at like walking and biking is
I
healthy.
understand all of that. I helped start walking school bus over there, so I
Yeah,
completely have
that's
it.
cool.
So I'm trying to figure out, we're doing something that we're not really being asked to do. So I'm just trying to figure that out. So can I ask one other question? Because I'm being asked about another issue as it relates to the schools. A gate somewhere, a gate at Hillside or Van Antwerp or some school my daughter didn't go to. So what is the story with the school district and the gate?
Oh,
Is it
here,
the Hillside issue with there being a closure of an existing cut through to get to VA? Is that the one you're referring to?
it's to get to Hillside. Yeah, there's
The
a
Hillside, it was
gate.
somebody's property. It went through, I think, one of the committees. I'm not sure which one, but there was that we determined that we don't own the school district doesn't own an easement. It was somebody's backyard. So I think that's why they put a fence up.
Okay. I thought I still had this up, but I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
have a couple of things that aren't on it.
That's one of the highlighted trails on one of the maps that I was showing you.
So, but what is the story? I mean, is there anything we can do about this? Is this a school district thing? Is this an us thing? I mean, when people ask me to do things and I want to.
It's not an us thing. It's not an us thing for sure.
They did ask us if we could like review the easements and stuff, and I think that we did go through our files and see what we could find. But yeah, it has been traditionally been an issue. I think that we're not a party on the easement or anything. It's between the school and the homeowners.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? One quick question. So those will be, Laura, so those sidewalks will be the town's responsibility for the maintenance, for the cleaning?
No, nope. That's all. It's all school stuff. We're just talking about offsetting vehicle trips. It's all on school property.
Okay, so there is no cost, benefit, or disadvantage to the town?
None.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just still trying to understand things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We all are, Isbeth. We all are. So
We'll learn it together.
yep.
I must have I'm sorry, completely closed out of every of my, okay. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to talk about for that one? The next thing I had on there is the copy of the survey that we wanted to send out to residents. Again, that doesn't have the 2 questions for the crossings that we want to use to leverage with the county. If anybody had a chance to look at the questions, if you have any comments on them, I think we do it like we did with the chickens and some of the other surveys we've done, just an email blast saying, we're interested in your thoughts. Feel free to, fill this out. And then we were thinking that we could put it on the Complete Streets website after it's been up for a little while, and then kind of anybody who was checking the Complete Streets website out could fill that out, because Alexa says that form stack, can keep track of the answers forever and let you know when people are adding stuff in, and it's just a good way to see what residents' priorities are for Complete Streets and stuff to guide us a little bit. It seems like it would be cool. And Tree Council's got 20 Liberty Elms coming in September. Still planning the Blatnick Park upgrades. They had good conversations with Ray. Probably going to do that in October. And the fall plantings are going to be just kind of a review of the smaller trees in town that had a rough summer. Maybe pulling some of those and putting some new guys in there because I think we lost a fair number to the drought that we had this summer. And I attached the Vincenzo Subdivision Street Tree Outreach letter. Luisi, as part of his Vincenzo subdivision, is planting 16 street trees. The Tree Council did an assessment of the neighborhood, identified areas, but it's kind of hard to just show up at somebody's property and plant a street tree, especially when they don't always want them. So what we wanted to do is do an outreach letter to them, which I think we've talked about before. Just put the letter in there, do the outreach letter, get them on board, see who wants a tree. We've got plenty of spaces. And then if, potentially there's more than 16 trees, while they're out there, we might be able to tag on some fall plantings over there, just kind of retree that area. The Conservation Advisory Council has been working on the LOMO initiative, which we've also talked about. And so that, I thought I put that in the packet, but it looks like I forgot. I can send you guys the maps. We're talking about LOMO area between Catherine's Wood and Blatnick Park alongside of the golf range. And we'd still mow a walking trail, and we're going to do an outreach letter to residents. And then maybe, and we had talked about this at CAC, like set some times where they can come out and speak to us about what it is and why we're doing it. And then we had a couple people attend the CAC who are interested in maybe doing like a fall blast to people, saying, just explaining to them that, I mean, you get a ton of leaves on your lawn, but maybe like the first kind of leaf fall, mow it and mulch it, because it's actually a really great way to put nutrients back in your soil. And, you know, it's good for the environment. So, you know, even if you're just, you know, just mowing like a third, you mow it a couple times, it kind of, the little pieces fall back down into your lawn and it looks like you've raked. I personally do that at my yard. It works great. So if we can put that together, we will, just as a thing that we can do. Climate smarts communities, talk about this in my budget meeting, but, and Denise and I talk about this all the time, really want to move forward with the natural resources inventory. That is our big goal. Still talking about the composting program and the rain barrels. I hope to have some rain barrel stuff for you guys. I was going to do it last night, but I didn't get to it. So I will just keep it on the agenda until I do. Joel Bezoin had said that he was willing to work with the Architectural Review Board on the way that his homes are going to look at Kelt Farm. So that's kind of a big win. And they're going to start working with him on it when they can. And he has been great to work with for what those buildings are going to look like. Building Department enforcement has got a lot of new single families homes going up in Harmon Grove. I think we've probably at least to permit number 10 out there. They're really going up quickly, and they're going up very high end. Those homes are typically on our building permits between $500,000 and $600,000. So like a lot of big high end homes going up over in Harmon Grove. Knott's Landing West is on hold. You guys probably all saw that sign. There's a huge increase in the cost of wood. Oh, go ahead.
So, I saw it in the newspaper. I was sort of taken aback that I have to find out what's happening in the town in the newspaper. So, what is the? Were we told before the business review was told?
He had emailed Yasmin that he was going to stop. I mean, I think he put. I don't know if you've seen it. He put a big sticker across his sign that says "Project on hold." My building inspector took a picture of it and sent it to me. Like I said in my email, I understand that the cost of wood is very high. I mean, he's under a building permit. Like, you can't keep the site like that forever. I mean, if the wood, you know, if the wood comes back to normal, great. In some way, in some fashion, he is going to have to move forward at some point. It can't stay like that forever. So that's just his call. Okay. But you will see that he's got a big sticker on his sign that says the project's not out there.
You can't stay like that forever. How long are we going to let it stay like that?
Well, I mean, he has had some issues with runoff that the engineering department has been working on. So he's got to stabilize it. He's got to get the grade to rough grade. He's got to get the sediment control in place.
But these are issues that have always taken place over there. We've dealt with runoff and sediment control and everything. And the other end of that, but the condos for years, it was one of the first things I ever did when I became a town board member was, you know, hear from Jay and everybody over there saying, can you come over and look at this? Yeah.
But as far as building permits goes and site plan approval, I mean, like I said, I think that the escalating renewal fees are really what kicks those projects into gear. So I guess it just depends on the pandemic and the wood. It could stay like that for many months if he so chose. There isn't really a mechanism that the town can do.
It's certainly next spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, again, a lot of stormwater issues been cropping up. I think it's just the recent rains. Been working with the engineering department on that. I don't have an update on the sidewalk on Console Road or the signage issues at Dean Street Park. I know you were emailing me about that, Denise. You made the outreach to the contacts and they're willing to work with us. So that's just something that we got to continue to follow up on to help. I put the the four kind of outliers under legal. I don't know if Paul or Alexis, you want to talk about those or anything else you have under legal, and then we can turn it over to Dennis for his historic places. Sorry that took so long, guys.
I know that those are four properties that have been on my desk in a file for a while, almost a year now. I did check that to the extent that there were court cases filed that predate me, Laura, we have to redo those because we didn't serve the owners. So we just need an update. I mean, that's just us.
So just like an updated new citation to, yeah, okay, so we can do that. Maybe just send us an email on which ones need the new updated citation, and Tom can do that. Okay, so it sounds like legal's good. Dennis, do you want to talk about your historical preservation initiative?
Sure. I'll try not to take as much time as we took with the chickens, but this is a proposal we've been working on. The committee has been working on for some time, and if everybody's got a copy of it, you can read through it. This is this idea is something that is in the 2013 Niskayuna Comprehensive Plan. And I included a list of, I think it's 157 homes that, by age at any rate, would classify as historic, either homes that, according to the residential inventory, were built before 1900, or the 1985 inventory of homes, historic homes inventory, which included some buildings from the 20th century. So we do have quite a few homes in the town, which may qualify for historic recognition. And we would like to begin the process of identifying some of those homes, perhaps a few each year, 2 or 3 maybe, and begin to put together a register of historic places in the town, and then provide a small plaque, not a plague, right, but small plaque to the homeowner to identify it as part of historic Niskayuna. What we'd like to do is put this forward as a resolution, and not necessarily in this wording, but put forward a resolution for town board's approval to move forward on this project.
And
Anybody
Dennis, I think I know the answer to this, but just to be sure, this isn't going to require the owners of these residences to do anything per code that any other residents would have to do, right?
No, absolutely not. We put that in there that it's strictly an honorific, a local honorary listing, which is awarded only for townwide historic recognition. Owners of property on the town register of historic places will have no restrictions on the use or maintenance of their property because of this designation.
Is there a cost associated with this, Dennis?
I'm sorry?
Is there a cost associated with this?
The plaques would cost, well, you could buy plaques for $50 or $500, but I think the plaques would come in around between $100 and $150, probably somewhere around $120 per plaque. So I have, Ismat, I have submitted a budget request for next year, which asks for a few extra $100 to basically plaques.
I was wondering what it was for. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Dennis, you said that it's houses built before 1900. Is this list going to become the list of the sites that are protected if we get into a developer wanting to take down a historic or a valued community asset? Because I'm thinking like the Paul Schaefer homes and some of the other neighborhoods that have homes that are much younger than, let's say, 1900, let's say in the 20s or 30s. Are we going to run the risk of opening those particular buildings up to development or knockdowns that may not be appropriate for the neighborhoods?
I put together this list just as a demonstration that we have a substantive number of homes that might deserve historic recognition. This is not an official list of any sort.
Okay.
So it's not meant to, or it can't, as far as I understand from talking to Lara. I don't think we're in a position to say, oh, you can't remove this home. If a historic home became under some sort of a threat of demolition, we'd have to take those up on an individual basis. And
Where I am sort of, this question's coming from, maybe Alexa, you can answer this, is when we had the house on Van Antwerp, one of the things that I think in the findings that were against the town was we did not have a registration of historic homes per se, or we didn't have any mechanism. I'm just wondering if this is going to take that place, or it's going to be construed as that. Dennis, I think what you're doing is great. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I would leave that up to Alexis to fill it in.
No,
I wasn't trying to make any sort of a legal statement about this. Alexis?
Yeah, I mean, the town's position in those filings was that the fact that it wasn't included on the state historical registry was not definitive on the subject matter. So, I mean, I don't think the town's position would change the decision in the Supreme Court last year that was issued, or earlier this year. I can look at the language, but no, I am not concerned about anything. I think this is a great idea.
I know, I think it's a great idea too, and I think I've really advocated for it for a while. I'm just concerned that we would get in a situation where someone would want to take down a community asset per se, and let's say this played out with the Conservation Advisory Board saying it would be an impact to the community, and then the developer would come back and say, well, it's not on your list. So how can you claim that it's a community asset? And we do have homes that are younger than 120 years old that are, I think, of value to the community.
Absolutely. And this list, I put this list together based just on dates. But again, according to the resolution I sent, that's not the only criteria for something, a building being historic. It could be historic because of who built it. It could be historic of the style, because of the style in which it was built. So none of the Schaefer homes are on this list, but I would think many of them would qualify, certainly. The other thing is, if we put this program together, the resident, if they so desired, could get the house then, or would have information to allow them to get the house on the state historic register if they wanted to do that. And if enough information is available, even to get it put on the National Register of Historic Homes. But that would be sort of step we take after the fact.
But
Thank you, Dennis.
Go ahead, Denise. I'll ask the question later.
The state historic registry, that would prevent us from doing anything with those homes or taking them down. There are a whole host of additional mandates that go along with that, right? I mean, it even dictates what kind of paint they could put on or things like that.
Exactly.
No,
That was my point.
No.
I don't believe those.
Oh, not for the state, only for the National Historic Registry?
Not for the national either.
Yeah, the national definitely does not have requirements. You know where you run into those is in historic districts, because historic districts essentially have their own zoning and set up district boards that protect the character of the community. Like the downtown Charlton has one, the Stockade in Charlton, in Schenectady has one, and that's where you really run into those restrictions. Even the national designation of historic, like we ran into it, like with the Sikh temple, they, have done some upgrades to their property, and it's all voluntary. They don't have restrictions on them when you get the designations.
Yeah, actually, when we went through the Ingersoll of the house. Really what we found on the CAC was that most of the regs that regulate historic buildings are locally based within the community. That's why a lot of communities do have, demolition reviews and stuff like that. I don't think we're talking about that here, but just because something's on a historic register, it doesn't save it.
No. I know Clifton Park does require, if you once you're designated as historic place, you can, and Clifton Park, you can then seek a rebate or a reduction of your taxes.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you do that,
Exemption.
then there would be some restrictions applied.
Right.
But that's a local regulation. Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, two things, and maybe Alexis can answer that. So first of all, they won't be under a restriction if they want to make any kind of renovations. They will not be required that you have to get that special tile from the 1900s or anything. So that's not valid. And
Yeah,
then they will not be eligible for any kind of exemption on our tax roll.
Not
Okay.
not as far as this is concerned. If the town wanted to go that way sometime in the future, that would be
That's a different thing. Yeah.
yes, that's a whole new thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes it very clear.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, just one quick point, and you could have mentioned this. I'm sorry if you did. I was reading the decision from the Judge Powers in the Lisi case. Have you reconciled this with the comprehensive plan? The comp plan, I know, was mentioned in this decision, saying that not only did this national nor state historic registries identify the main property as having historical significance, but also the town's comprehensive plan did not reference the existing residences. I know the historical properties identified in the comp plan are from 2013, but to the extent you've looked at them.
So we would, Dennis, we would probably, I mean, the comprehensive plan list was not illustrative, which is like kind of what we were arguing. Like, I think they only listed what was on the National Register, and it was like, or other similar things. So I think really what needs to happen with the comprehensive plan is that the language needs to be updated, made more specific, and potentially reference any new, like either the 1983 historic survey or, a new list of designated homes that we have. It's probably the way that you would tie it back to the comprehensive plan. I think it was essentially too vague.
Yeah, I believe that the intent of the comprehensive plan, based on our conversation, was that those sites were included just for example. And the intent was to work towards a registration updating that, and if the town so choose, put in particular protections, like a review board for old structures before they were demolished, if it wasn't for health and safety and stuff like that. But we never put that in because we didn't reach a consensus on that.
Okay.
That's probably a different discussion than what we're discussing today.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything further?
One other thing I would like to talk about, just briefly, I'll make it quick. The second item on the historical list there is Friends of Grange. That should be Friends of Rosendale Common School. The plaque reads Rosendale Common School, and that's really the focus of the Friends group that Matt Wall is trying to organize. Matt has gotten some responses to the proposal that he sent out last month, but at the moment he is working as a census enumerator, and he said he's very, very busy working a lot of hours, so he hasn't gotten around to putting anything together or planning another meeting or a meeting to move forward on this. So since that's sort of a little bit on hold here, I was wondering, we do have our plaque for the school, and I would like to move forward with planning to install it at the school and maybe have some sort of a media event to unveil it and bring some attention to the school. Does anybody have any thoughts about going forward with that now, rather than waiting until this Friends of the school committee is formed and begins to move forward?
I'm part of that. I know Matt, I think Matt is almost done. So I think what I would like to be able to have happen is we would have the event, but also announce the Friends of the Grange and get people, Rosendale School, and,
Right.
and kind of have them both at the same time. I think they're naturally lend themselves to one another. My impression
That's fine with me. Yeah.
weeks.
Pardon?
My impression was Matt was done in a few weeks. So if we could try to
Yeah.
plan something from early or middle October, I think that would be great.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that as well. I just didn't want, I know Laura likes having that plaque in her office, but I didn't know whether she was getting tired of looking at it. But
That's beautiful. I love it.
So in an unrelated to the Rosendale School or plaques or Mr. Fromowitz sent us an email about Shannon Boulevard or whatever's going on over there. And he had a question about a home. Has anybody read that, Dennis or Laura?
I read your email and, well, I drove over there just to take a look at it. It doesn't look like they're planning on expanding that house. The building is from 1909, according to our residential inventory. It's not a 19th century building. It doesn't make it insignificant. But I haven't found any more about that, although I wrote to a member of the committee who knows something about those homes that I haven't heard back from him yet. Laura, do you get any information on that?
No. And we just talked about this. There isn't really any town code that requires that the home go through any extra demolition permit, but it's Joel who owns it, and I push him really hard to protect those houses if he can. And I will continue to ask him to protect those homes. I lost the battle on Celts. He said that home was beyond a repair when he went in. But this one, I think the bones of it are much better. So if there's any way that this can be maintained in any kind of development proposal that he puts forward, that's the high priority here.
Okay, can somebody get back to Mr. Fromowitz?
Mm-hmm.
Laura, will you do that, or do you want me to get in touch with him?
I'll respond.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything further for the good of the order? Seeing none, I think we can make a motion to adjourn. I will do so. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Anybody opposed? Thank you all, and we'll see you next month, if not at the next budget meeting, which I think, Laura, is that starting right after this?
Yeah, it's right now.
Is that the separate link, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Very
Or do we
well.
just want to stay here and everybody else get off, Laura? Or you want to take a minute?
Either way works fine. We absolutely can just stay on. Let me just stop the recording here. Hold on.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.